In 1912, the world witnessed the launch of the largest and most luxurious ship ever built. It was called the RMS Titanic. Many believed this ship was so advanced that it could never sink. On April 10th, thousands of excited passengers gathered at the busy harbor of Southampton. Families waved goodbye as the giant ship slowly began its historic journey across the Atlantic Ocean. The Titanic was heading toward New York City, carrying more than 2,000 passengers and crew members. Inside the ship, life felt like a floating palace. There were luxurious cabins, elegant dining halls, and the famous grand staircase shining under warm, golden lights. Passengers enjoyed fine meals, music, and breathtaking ocean views. On the open decks, travelers relaxed in the fresh sea air, while the massive ship moved smoothly through the calm water. For several days, the journey felt peaceful and perfect. But far ahead, hidden in the freezing waters of the North Atlantic Ocean, a silent danger was waiting. Several nearby ships had already sent warnings about drifting icebergs, yet the Titanic continued sailing forward at high speed through the dark night. Late in the evening of April 14th, the ocean was unusually calm, and the sky was filled with bright stars. High above the deck, two lookouts carefully watched the dark horizon. Then suddenly, a dark shape appeared in the distance. A massive iceberg stood directly in the path of the Titanic, and within seconds, history was about to change forever. At 11:40 p.m., the lookout rang the warning bell. Iceberg, right ahead. On the bridge, the crew reacted instantly. The ship tried to turn. Engines were reversed, but the massive iceberg was already too close. With a terrifying grinding sound, the side of the RMS Titanic scraped against the ice. Huge chunks of ice fell onto the deck as the ship slowly passed the iceberg. At first, many passengers hardly noticed the impact. Some thought it was just a small vibration, but deep inside the ship, something far more serious had happened. The iceberg had torn open several compartments below the waterline. Freezing seawater began rushing into the lower decks. Ship designer Thomas Andrews quickly inspected the damage. After examining the flooding compartments, he delivered the terrifying truth: the Titanic would sink. Officers immediately ordered lifeboats to be prepared, but there was a terrible problem. There were not enough lifeboats for everyone on board. Soon panic began spreading across the decks. Passengers gathered outside in the freezing night air, trying to understand what was happening. Officers shouted orders: women and children first. One by one, lifeboats were lowered into the dark ocean. Meanwhile, the front of the Titanic slowly began sinking into the freezing Atlantic waters. The great ship that people believed could never sink was now fighting for its life. As the night grew colder, the situation became more desperate. The bow of the RMS Titanic continued sinking deeper into the ocean. Water flooded deck after deck. Passengers rushed toward the remaining lifeboats. Some prayed, some searched desperately for their families. Others stood silently, watching the disaster unfold. By 2 o'clock in the morning, the ship was tilting dramatically. The front of the Titanic had almost disappeared beneath the freezing waters of the North Atlantic Ocean. The stern of the ship slowly rose high into the air. Passengers struggled to hold on as gravity pulled them toward the icy sea. Then suddenly, with a loud roar of twisting metal, the Titanic broke apart. Moments later, the massive ship slipped beneath the dark ocean. At 2:20 a.m. on April 15th, 1912, the Titanic was gone. More than 1,500 people were lost in the freezing waters that night. In the silent darkness, survivors drifted in lifeboats across the cold ocean. Hours later, rescue finally arrived from the ship RMS Carpathia. About 700 people survived, but the tragedy of the Titanic would never be forgotten. Today, more than a century later, the wreck of the RMS Titanic still rests deep beneath the ocean floor, a silent reminder of one of the most famous disasters in history, and a powerful lesson that even the greatest human achievements are never stronger than the power of nature.